He lays next to you, quiet, present, but distant. You touch his body, but do you touch his soul? Most women believe men are wired only for the physical. But here's the truth. What men are starving for is emotional intimacy, not just your hands, but your heart. We often misunderstand men as simple creatures. But beneath the surface is a man who silently longs to be seen, understood, and emotionally held. In this video, we'll unravel why the emotional connection matters more to men than the world dares to admit, and how you can become the woman who reaches him where no one else ever has. Every man you meet walks through life carrying invisible weight. He's expected to be strong, stoic, reliable. From a young age, boys are taught not to cry, not to show weakness, not to admit when they're hurting. That condition doesn't disappear when they become men. It just goes underground. So when he walks into his home at the end of a long day, what he's really seeking isn't just a physical break or someone to sleep beside. He's looking for something deeper, something the world refuses to give him: emotional safety. A place where he can let his guard down without fear of judgment. A space where he doesn't have to perform, prove, or protect. And most importantly, a woman who doesn't just share his bed, but understands the war he's fighting silently inside. The truth is, many women underestimate just how emotionally vulnerable men truly are. Not because men don't feel humble, but because they've learned to bury those feelings to survive. He's not cold, he's cautious. He's not distant, he's defensive. The world has taught him that opening up is dangerous, that expressing fear, sadness, or even exhaustion might make people see him as weak or unworthy. So what does he do? He suppresses it. He pushes it down. He smiles when he wants to scream. He shrugs when he wants to cry. He says, "I'm fine," when he's anything but fine. And then he walks into his home, hoping, just hoping, that this one place, this one person will finally allow him to exhale. But so often, even in his own home, he's met with more expectations, more criticism, more emotional coldness disguised as strength. And the worst part, he doesn't know how to ask for what he needs because no one ever taught him how. That's why when a woman creates a space of genuine emotional safety, it's not a small act. It's life-changing, it's healing, it's rare, and it's unforgettable. Because she becomes the only place on earth where he feels like he can truly breathe. A safe space is not about coddling or fixing him. It's about seeing him clearly, without judgment, without a checklist, without trying to reshape him. It's about accepting that he's human, that his silence isn't apathy, it's exhaustion, that his hesitation to open up isn't emotional immaturity, it's trauma. You give him safety when you allow him to express his doubts, fears, and failures without mocking or using them against him later. You give him safety when you ask how he feels and really mean it. You give him safety when you stop trying to win the argument and instead choose to win his heart. Safety looks like softness in your tone when he's had a bad day. It looks like sitting next to him in silence without forcing words. It looks like choosing empathy over ego. It looks like believing in his goodness even when he's struggling to see it himself. It looks like protecting his dreams, his insecurities, and his reputation, even when you're angry. Emotional safety doesn't require grand gestures. Sometimes it's just in the way you look at him when he's tired, or the way you don't laugh when he shares something awkward, or the way you hold him not just with your arms but with your energy. He may not say it, but he notices. He feels it. And over time, he lets you deeper into the places no one else has been allowed to see. And here's the miracle of it. When a man feels emotionally safe, he rises. He becomes more affectionate, more confident, more alive. He starts to share more, dream more, love more. The walls he once built start to fall, not because he was forced to change, but because he finally felt safe enough to be who he really is. That's the secret most people miss. Emotional safety doesn't weaken a man, it strengthens him. It doesn't make him dependent, it makes him loyal. He doesn't just fall for the woman who looks good beside him. He falls for the woman who feels good around him, the one who gives him peace, not pressure, the one who builds him up when the world tears him down, the one who touches not just his body, but his soul. If you truly want to reach a man, don't just speak to his intellect or react to his behavior. Speak to the part of him that's been ignored, overlooked, and misunderstood his entire life. Speak to the boy inside who never felt fully safe to just be himself. Show him that your love isn't conditional on his performance or status. Show him that he doesn't have to be perfect to be worthy of warmth. Let him know that in your presence he can take off the armor, that he doesn't have to fight or fix to earn your affection, that he can cry, stumble, be confused, and still be enough for you. That is what emotional safety looks like. And when you offer it with consistency and grace, you become unforgettable, not because of what you gave him physically, but because of how deeply you understood what no one else even noticed. Silence is often misunderstood. We rush to fill it, we fear it, we assume it means something is wrong. But in the world of men, silence is rarely empty. It's full of thoughts he's never said aloud, full of emotions he never learned how to name, full of pain he's trained himself to suppress. When a man is silent, it's easy to believe he's disconnected, distant, or uninterested. But what most people don't realize is that for many men, silence is the language they were forced to learn. It's how they process, how they cope, how they survive. And if you want to truly connect with a man, you must learn to listen, not just to his words, but to his silence. Growing up, boys are rarely taught to express emotions in a healthy, open way. Instead, they're told to man up, stop crying, or deal with it. Over time, those messages become their inner voice. They don't stop feeling, they just stop showing it. So when life becomes overwhelming, when they're hurt, when they're scared, when they feel lost, they often retreat inward. Not because they don't want to talk, but because they were never taught how. Because they're afraid they won't be understood. Because the last time they opened up, someone used it against them. So they shut down, they go quiet. They carry their burdens in silence, hoping someone might notice the weight. They're hiding behind the stillness. This is where your presence matters more than your words. When a man is silent, don't rush to interpret, accuse, or fix. Instead, just be there, fully, calmly, gently. Let your energy speak louder than your voice. Sit with him. Let him feel that you're not there to interrogate him, but to witness him. Your stillness becomes an invitation, not a demand. In a world that constantly pressures him to speak, you become the rare person who offers him the freedom to simply exist. And when he feels that safety, that non-judgmental presence, he may start to open up slowly, carefully, but authentically. Listening to a man's silence also means paying attention to the subtle ways he does communicate. The way his shoulders slump when he walks through the door, the way he sighs and says, "I'm fine," with a heaviness in his voice. The way he withdraws from the things he used to enjoy. These are not signs of disinterest, they are signals of struggle. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is acknowledge what you notice, not by prying, but by gently letting him know, "I see you." Say, "I can tell something's on your mind. You don't have to talk about it right now, but I'm here whenever you're ready." That one sentence can feel like a lifeline to a man drowning in his own silence. And understand this, silence doesn't always mean something is wrong. For some men, silence is how they recharge, how they reflect, how they find peace in a chaotic world. So don't take it personally. Don't assume his silence means he's pushing you away. Sometimes it simply means he feels safe enough with you to not have to perform. And that in itself is a deep form of intimacy, when a man can sit in silence beside a woman without feeling pressure to speak. That's not distance. That's trust. But trust takes time, and it's built in the quiet moments more than in the dramatic ones. Every time you choose patience over pressure, presence over panic, you build a bridge to his inner world. You show him that he doesn't have to entertain you or explain himself to be worthy of your love. You show him that his silence isn't a flaw to fix, but a truth to understand. You become the one who sees him, not just the version of him the world demands, but the man he is when no one's watching. Eventually, he will speak. He'll open up, not with rehearsed words or emotional speeches, but with honesty. He might not say everything perfectly. He might fumble or hold back, but it will be real, and it will come because you earned it, because you listened when there was nothing to hear, because you respected his pace, because you honored the quiet parts of him, not just the loud ones. And in a world that constantly shouts, that's rare, that's powerful, that's unforgettable. So if you truly want to understand a man, stop waiting for the perfect conversation. Start honoring the silence. Let it teach you, let it soften you, let it draw you closer, not push you away, because within that silence is the part of him he hides from everyone else. And when you learn to listen without hearing a word, you finally begin to love him where he lives. Admiration is not flattery. It's not about empty compliments or vague words meant to boost ego. True admiration is intentional, specific, and rooted in respect. And for a man, admiration is not optional, it's oxygen. It breathes life into his purpose, his confidence, and his willingness to show up fully in a relationship. While love may be the foundation, admiration is the fuel. It's what separates a connection that lasts from one that fades. Because when a man feels admired by the woman he loves, he doesn't just feel appreciated, he feels seen, valued, and understood in a way that the rest of the world rarely offers. Most men are not aching for grand gestures or dramatic displays. What they deeply crave is quiet recognition for who they are at their core, not just for what they do or how much they earn or how well they perform, but for their effort, their values, their unseen sacrifice. The man who wakes up early to face a job he hates just to provide. The man who keeps his worries to himself so others can rest easy. The man who may not have perfect words but shows his love through actions. This man rarely hears, "I admire you," but when he does, it changes everything. Because admiration isn't about puffing him up. It's about watering the parts of him that have gone dry from years of being taken for granted. In today's world, men are constantly under pressure to prove their worth at work, in society, even in their relationships. They're told that they must be strong, successful, emotionally intelligent, confident, romantic, stoic, open, decisive, gentle, assertive, and on and on. The standards are not only confusing, they're impossible. So when a man finally finds a woman who doesn't treat him like a project to fix or a checklist to complete, but instead looks him in the eye and says, "I admire the way you handle pressure," or "I respect the way you never give up," something deep within him shifts. He feels safe, empowered, alive. And here's the secret most women don't realize. When you admire a man, you unlock his deeper potential. You're not enabling ego, you're awakening purpose. A man will run through fire for a woman who truly believes in him, not because he's desperate for approval, but because her admiration becomes a mirror, one that reflects back the best version of himself, especially in the moments he can't see it. That's the difference between manipulation and motivation. Criticism might push a man, but admiration lifts him. It reminds him that he's not invisible, that his quiet battles are noticed, that his presence matters. Not just what he provides, but who he is when no one's clapping. You don't have to exaggerate, you don't have to lie, you simply have to pay attention. Catch him doing good. Notice when he shows discipline, when he keeps a promise, when he tries, even when it's hard. Don't wait until a major success to express admiration. Speak life into the process. Say, I admire the way you stayed calm today, or I respect how much thought you put into that decision. These small recognitions, offered sincerely, do more to strengthen a man than any amount of physical affection alone ever could. And ironically, when a man feels admired emotionally, he often becomes more open, more affectionate, more connected, because admiration builds trust. It creates emotional intimacy. It tells him you are safe here. You don't have to be perfect to be respected. It's also important to understand that admiration is not submission. It doesn't mean ignoring his flaws or tolerating disrespect. It means choosing to focus on his strength without denying his humanity. A strong woman who knows her worth is not afraid to admire a man because she understands that admiration is not weakness. It's wisdom. It's power. It's the art of building someone without breaking yourself. And in return, a good man, when admired with honesty and integrity, doesn't take advantage. He rises. He protects the woman who sees his greatness. He becomes more than he was because someone finally believed he could. If you withhold admiration to control, punish, or test a man, he won't thrive. He may stay, but he'll shrink. He may function, but he won't flourish. A man who feels like he's never enough will either shut down emotionally or seek validation elsewhere. Not because he's weak, but because emotional starvation eventually leads anyone to go searching for air. But when you make admiration part of your love language, not performative, but pure, you create a relationship built on mutual empowerment. He begins to bring more of himself to the table. He opens up. He leads better. He loves harder, not from pressure, but from inspiration. So ask yourself, do I admire the man I'm with? Not just love him. Admire him. Do I let him know what I see in him? Do I feed his soul or just take from his strength? Because when a man is emotionally nourished by admiration, he doesn't just stay. He invests, he protects, he grows. And he gives you a version of himself that no one else will ever know. Out in the world, he's already in competition. Every day, he wakes up and enters an invisible battlefield, competing for relevance, recognition, respect, whether it's in his career, his community, or even just navigating the unspoken expectations of what it means to be a man. He is constantly measured, evaluated, and tested. He's expected to lead without faltering, earn without complaining, protect without breaking, and achieve without showing exhaustion. And while society may never say it out loud, the pressure to win, to dominate, to prove himself is relentless. But no man, no matter how strong, can stay in fight mode forever. At some point, the armor begins to feel heavy, the mask starts to crack. He begins to long for a space where he doesn't have to be on all the time. And that space, ideally, should be his relationship, his home, his partner. But too often, it isn't. One of the most silent forms of emotional fatigue men carry comes from feeling like they are still in competition, even behind closed doors. It's not always loud. It doesn't always show up as screaming matches or power struggles. Sometimes it's in the small things, a dismissive tone, a subtle comparison, the constant need to prove he's right, or the feeling that no matter what he does, it's never quite enough. It's when his thoughts are challenged more than considered, when his way of doing things is belittled, when decisions are made to keep score instead of build unity. It's when he feels like he's not sharing life with a partner, but sparring with an opponent. And that emotional environment, over time, drains the very life out of a man. What most women don't realize is that when a man feels like he has to compete at home for respect, for peace, for influence, he doesn't fight harder. He detaches, not because he doesn't care, but because he's emotionally exhausted. He may stop initiating conversations, stop engaging in decisions, stop investing energy into the relationship, not as an act of rebellion, but as an unconscious form of emotional survival. It's not that he's become cold, he's become tired. Tired of defending his intentions, tired of explaining his value, tired of being questioned more than he's trusted. And when that weariness sets in, the relationship starts to feel more like a burden than a refuge. But the shift doesn't have to be dramatic to be powerful. When a woman chooses to become her man's ally instead of his rival, something transformative happens. The walls begin to fall. The tension begins to ease. He starts to feel emotionally safe, not just from external threats, but from the subtle internal battle of never feeling good enough. Allyship doesn't mean blind agreement or loss of independence. It means building together instead of keeping score. It means seeking understanding instead of always needing to win. It means respecting his perspective, even when it differs from yours. It means trusting that he wants what's best for both of you, not just for himself. When you shift the energy from competition to collaboration, you don't lose power, you multiply it. You become a team. And when a man feels like his woman is truly on his side, he becomes more open, more generous, more invested. He doesn't just protect her, he prioritizes her. He doesn't just support her goals, he makes them part of his mission. Because a man who feels emotionally partnered doesn't hold back. He thrives, he steps into his best self, not from pressure or fear, but from inspiration and deep connection. This doesn't mean avoiding conflict. Disagreements will happen. But there's a difference between healthy challenge and constant opposition. A healthy challenge is rooted in love and growth. Opposition is rooted in control and insecurity. The key is in the intention behind your words, your tone, your reactions. Are you building trust or building tension? Are you creating closeness or creating competition? Here's the truth. A man doesn't need you to be perfect. He needs you to be peaceful, not passive. Peaceful. He needs to feel that when he walks through the door, he's coming home, not stepping into another battlefield. That when he shares an idea, you're curious, not combative. That when he stumbles, you extend grace, not gloating. That you see him not as a rival, but as a partner worth fighting for, not fighting against. When you give a man that kind of emotional environment, he doesn't become lazy. He becomes powerful. He starts to lead with more clarity, love with more depth, and live with more purpose. Because he knows, truly knows, that at the end of the day, there's one person in his corner who's not there to compete with him, but to complete what they're building together. And that, for a man, is everything. It's not just emotional comfort, it's emotional oxygen. It's what keeps him grounded in a chaotic world. It's what makes him choose you, fight for you, and stay loyal to you, not out of obligation, but out of deep, unshakable bond. Because when a man no longer has to compete for peace, he has the energy to create a love that lasts. For many women, emotional connection often precedes physical desire. But what's often overlooked is that the same is true for men, just in a different language. While the world paints men as creatures who primarily seek sex, the truth is much more layered. Yes, men have strong physical desires, but what few talk about is how deeply emotional those desires actually are, how much they are tied to trust, connection, and feeling seen. When a man feels emotionally disconnected from the woman he's with, the physical connection may still occur, but it's hollow, shallow, mechanical. There's no fire behind the touch, no depth behind the closeness. And over time, this becomes a silent erosion of intimacy in the relationship. You see, for a man to fully give himself physically, to be present, passionate, and vulnerable, he first has to feel emotionally safe. Not just safe from judgment, but safe to be fully himself, safe to express his confusion, safe to show his affection without fear of being dismissed, safe to reveal his awkwardness, his cravings, his tenderness, and safe to explore physical intimacy not as an act of performance, but as an extension of emotional truth. When that safety is missing, physical intimacy becomes something he does, not something he feels. And that difference is everything. This is why some men begin to pull away sexually, not because they've lost attraction, but because they've lost emotional alignment. There's a subtle grief in making love to someone you feel disconnected from, a quiet emptiness in holding a woman who doesn't see your inner world. And when a man senses that the emotional connection has weakened, when he feels misunderstood, disrespected, or unseen, his desire doesn't disappear, but it shifts. It becomes fragmented. It becomes need-driven, not soul-driven. And what once felt sacred now feels transactional. But the opposite is also true, and it's powerful. When a man feels emotionally connected to his partner, something extraordinary happens. His desire deepens. It evolves. He doesn't just crave the physical act. He craves her energy, her affection, her approval, her joy. Every touch becomes more meaningful. Every kiss becomes a conversation. Every moment of physical closeness becomes a form of emotional communication. I'm with you. I trust you. I choose you. Oh, you unlock this level of intimacy not through seduction, but through sincerity, through the emotional cues you give long before you ever touch his skin. When you speak to his heart, his body listens. When you value his thoughts, his hands open. When you admire his effort, he draws closer. When you create an emotional space that says you are safe with me, you don't have to beg for physical connection. It flows naturally, effortlessly, passionately. This is why emotional foreplay matters more than physical buildup. It begins with your words, your tone, your presence. It's the way you lean in when he speaks, the way you respond when he's vulnerable, the way you touch him outside of intimacy, not with expectation, but with affection. These things may seem small, but to a man, they're signals. They say, you matter to me beyond your performance, and that opens the door to a deeper kind of desire. Men long to be wanted, not just needed. They long to be pursued emotionally, not just tolerated physically. And when a woman expresses her desire, not just for his body, but for his mind, his perspective, his unique way of being, it awakens something inside him that no physical act alone ever could. It tells him, I see you, I respect you, I want all of you. And that's when physical intimacy stops being routine and starts becoming unforgettable. You don't need to be perfect in how you connect. You just need to be present, to care enough to slow down, to ask him what he feels, to hold his gaze instead of brushing past it. Emotional intimacy is not about heavy, dramatic conversations. Sometimes it's in the shared silence, the inside joke, the unexpected compliment, the way you reach for his hand when there's nothing to say. These moments are small, but they're sacred. They build trust, they deepen desire. They make physical touch not just pleasurable, but powerful. Here's the truth: men are starving for emotional depth. And when you give that to him, not by forcing, but by offering, he doesn't just respond physically, he opens emotionally. He becomes more playful, more connected, more generous in his passion. He doesn't just want to be with you, he wants to give to you, to explore you, to treasure you, because he's no longer just satisfying a need. He's sharing a bond. So if the physical has started to fade, don't chase it through technique or tension. Go deeper. Reconnect emotionally. Make him feel safe, respected, admired, and wanted. Remind him, not with pressure, but with presence, that you still see the man inside the role. And when you do, you'll find that physical desire doesn't just return, it transforms. It becomes something more soulful, more alive, more enduring. Because when a man is touched emotionally, his body becomes a reflection of his heart. And that kind of connection, that kind of intimacy, doesn't fade with time. It only grows. Every man, no matter how confident he may seem on the outside, carries silent questions within. Am I enough? Am I doing the right thing? Do I matter? These questions rarely get voiced, and when they do, they often come out in disguised forms: withdrawal, frustration, overworking, or even emotional detachment. He may not say it, but he constantly looks to the people closest to him, especially the woman he loves, for the answers. And here's the part most never realize. You can either become the mirror that reflects his strength back to him, or the critic that magnifies his flaws. One builds him, the other breaks him. The choice is powerful, and it's yours. You see, a man doesn't grow through constant correction. He grows through reflection. When he looks at you, he unconsciously sees himself through your eyes. If your eyes are filled with respect, admiration, and belief in his potential, even when he's struggling, he feels empowered, he feels motivated to rise. But if your eyes are filled with disappointment, sarcasm, or emotional withdrawal, he begins to internalize failure, not just in his actions, but in his identity. He starts to believe that who he is will never be enough, no matter what he does. This doesn't mean you can never express your needs or frustrations, but there is a massive difference between correcting with compassion and criticizing with contempt. A mirror reflects truth, but gently. It shows reality without distortion. A critic, on the other hand, attacks. It magnifies flaws while minimizing strengths. When you become a mirror to your man, you reflect both who he is and who he has the potential to be. You hold space for his greatness even when he temporarily forgets it himself. This kind of emotional support is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's understanding that men, despite their rough exterior, are often most vulnerable with the women they love. And in that vulnerability, they're either built up or torn down by the emotional environment they're exposed to. You become the emotional environment. You are either the reason he becomes better, more confident, more open, or the reason he becomes closed off, defensive, and emotionally absent. So how do you become his mirror, not his critic? First, speak life into his effort, not just his outcome. Notice when he tries. Acknowledge when he shows up, even when he's tired. Appreciate when he chooses presence over distraction. Tell him, I see what you're doing and I respect you for it. Those small words land deeply. They tell him you're not invisible, you're not failing, you're growing. Second, choose empathy over ego. In moments of tension, rather than immediately pointing out what he did wrong, pause and ask yourself, what might he be feeling right now? Men are rarely encouraged to explore their emotions, so when you respond with understanding instead of accusation, you become rare. You create emotional safety. That safety unlocks honesty, and honesty deepens intimacy. Third, don't weaponize his vulnerability. When he shares something raw with you, his fears, his failures, his doubts, hold it like something sacred. Don't throw it back in his face later during an argument. Don't use it as proof that you were right and he was wrong. Protect it. Because the moment a man feels unsafe in his own vulnerability, he'll retreat, not just from you, but from himself. And rebuilding that trust is 10 times harder than building it the first time. Finally, be the voice that reminds him of who he truly is. Not just when things are good, but especially when things are hard. Tell him, you're stronger than this moment. Tell him, I believe in your character, not just your success. Tell him, you don't have to be perfect to be loved here. These affirmations are not just words. They are mirrors. They reflect identity. And when you become a woman who reflects a man's best self back to him, he will love you with a loyalty and depth that no physical beauty or performance ever could earn. Men are not as emotionally numb as they appear. They're just emotionally starved. Starved of encouragement, starved of belief, starved of spaces where they're allowed to be human, not just heroes. Be that space. Be the one who looks past his flaws and sees his effort. Be the one who reminds him of his vision when life has blurred it. Be the one who helps him rise, not by pushing, but by reflecting the greatness already inside him. Because here's what you need to understand. When a man is constantly criticized, he stops hearing the words and starts absorbing the message, I'm not good enough. But when a man is consistently mirrored with love, respect, and belief, even in correction, he doesn't just perform better, he becomes better. He feels safe to evolve. He feels free to grow. He doesn't resist change. He embraces it because it's being called out from a place of love, not shame. So if you want to build a lasting, passionate, and emotionally connected relationship, don't just touch his body, touch his identity, reflect his worth, be his mirror, not his critic, and watch him become the man he was always capable of being, not because he had to, but because you helped him remember who he truly is.